won't find the phantom. He finds you.
G'day, this is Expand the Phantom podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com and you can subscribe to our podcast via YouTube or through your favourite podcast app. Please do not forget to give us a rating so others can find us. This is episode 295 as we catch up with the team behind the Phantom video game. By the time you listen to this, the pre-orders for the digital version of the game are open and you listeners will be very happy. We thought it would be a great opportunity for us to catch up with Ash Nicholls behind the game, but also two of his colleagues that are the animators and illustrator behind the game as well. So I am Jermayn and welcome Dan and Steve. How are you guys?
Yeah, very good, Jim. Happy to be here on a Saturday morning our time. Talking Phantom, very excited to hear all about the game and to meet the crew behind it.
Anything to do with the video game, up and at 'em. Fantastic way to spend a Saturday morning, I think.
So today we have with us Anthony Spay, who is the lead artist behind the game, but also Matthew Cutler, who is the 2D animator for Art of Play. So we'll quickly introduce those. Anthony, how are you?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Now, you have been with us before in episode 188, which was back in May 2021. So a lot has changed in the 3.5 years.
Oh, yeah. Just a lot more Phantom work since then, doing comics, and now I've been doing the game for 2 years. So it's been great.
And Ash, you are back with us. So for those who have come in late, you've been with us a few times on episode 242, which was February 2023, episode 251, which was May 2023, and then 268, which was December 2023. And then, of course, you were also in our Supernova June 2024 catch-up from Supernova as well. But we have never had Matthew Cutler on. So, Matt, we're going to get you to start off with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm just like you said, I'm a 2D animator for Art of Play. I've worked with them for quite a while now, quite a few years. I lose track of time myself. Worked in the early stages of the Phantom game, kind of helped conceptualize, get a good footing, made some rough animations. And we slowly kind of found footing and a kind of pipeline that made sense and worked with all the 2D animation in that front.
So did you know about the Phantom before you started on this game?
I did not. I knew nothing. Now I know a lot more.
Yeah. So would you call yourself a fan?
Crash course. We gave him a pretty heavy-duty crash course.
Yes.
So what was the crash course like?
A lot of things, we try to keep this as by the book as possible. So like just a lot of looking things up, research, making sure things made sense for the character, for the world, for, the history of the comic. So just kind of thrown in and lots of research, which was cool. It's really cool to learn about all this stuff.
Now that you are a fully fledged Phantom creator and you bleed purple, what do you love about the character?
I don't know. I guess it's kind of the demeanor. There's a lot of things we focused on. Like a hot topic was the idle animation for the game. We just wanted to make sure it wasn't too average, like main character average. We wanted it to stand out and be kind of his true identity, which I really like because I really like to it's just sort of unique. It's just. I don't know. You can't really compare it to anyone else because it's, at least to me, it's unique. I don't know. I really like it. So mostly his personality, just the kind of atmosphere of him and the story he's involved in.
We had a lot of sorry to cut you off there. We had a lot of one-on-one sessions, Matthew and I, talking about individual movements because there've been a lot of Phantom still images, and obviously in the comics he's moving, but he's only being captured in 1 or 2 frames, and so we had to sort of extrapolate that out and figure out how he would move and how much he weighed, and not having him too acrobatic but not having him too heavy-footed. And so Matthew and I watched a lot of the movie, but I also read a lot of the comics that that you happily supplied, just to get the simple things that people probably don't think about too much, but form the personality of the Phantom. And also, we're working within a genre that doesn't necessarily go into great depths in that anyway, but we wanted to sort of push it a little bit. So, yeah, that was the main focus of the crash course. We didn't sit down and too much and work on individual stories or anything like that. It was more or less, who is the character and how do we depict that character on the screen?
One of the things I've really enjoyed about the animation, Matthew, is how the Phantom does move. He's not like a lumbering Ben Affleck style Batman, which is just a heavyweight fighter champion. He's got that lithe athleticness about him. Like, he moves like a jungle cat. He can run faster than lightning. He can, but he's still got the power behind a heavyweight fighter, I guess you could say. So I think you've done quite well with that. And was that intentional?
Yeah. And well, thank you, first of all. It took a long time to kind of come up with most of the animations. There were some that, we would do and it would be like, oh yeah, that's perfect. But there's a lot that we had I mean, like the walk cycle is something that I'll live with forever. There's so many drafts of it. And it's just, trying to make sure it moves right, but then like you said, it has some sort of, just balancing athletic brooding and strength, just so he feels not just well-rounded in a way that, oh, he can do everything, but like, oh, realistically he moves like a person. There wasn't much cartoon squash and stretching with things. We had to be careful and not make it look too cartoony. So he felt real and with the sense of real, he kind of feels like strong, So a lot of it was very, very intentional and time consuming, but worth it in the end.
Right? I think the beat 'em up genre lately, sort of moving out of Streets of Rage, if you're thinking about like what's just released in the last 6 months, the sort of action fighting game has been a lot of smaller type sprites with sort of larger heads. I call them sort of the Funko Pop beat 'em up movement, where it's all very bouncy and everything's sort of, you can jump off the edge of the screen and you can do a lot of aerial attacks. And we kind of wanted the game to sort of harken back to the classic beat 'em up era of the late 80s, early 90s. And to do that successfully in a modern gaming space is quite difficult because modern gamers expect to see more animation than you would have in the early 90s, late 80s. So my brief to Matthew was, we need to keep the frames low because we don't have budget to be doing 30 frame walk cycle, so it needs to be 12 frames. But each one of those frames needs to count and it needs to show a demeanor of the Phantom that is powerful and strong, but not rigid either. He needs to look flexible, but also powerful. Yeah, like Matthew said, we basically back and forth on one cycle for multiple days, just trying to get it right. And we pull references both from the Phantom and from existing games, and we go back and forward. So those sorts of things, like, they sort of become your crash course, because at the end of it, you feel like you've created not just some sprites that are purple, but you feel like you've created a character. I think that's probably the most powerful thing we can do in this sort of media, is actually build up a functioning character that moves and reacts in a way that you feel is respected. It correlates well to the comics.
Can I just ask an ignorant question? When you talk about 12 steps in the cycle, in the walk cycle or whatever, is that, Anthony, is that you drawing 12 different versions of the Phantom as he walks, and then Matthew, you making sure that they run together seamlessly as an animation? Is that what you're talking about in terms of process?
A little of both. Most of the time, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, for the Phantom himself, I did some more, but for most of the game, Matthew did like most of the animating. So like I would do the design, I do a couple key shots and stuff like that of like important poses or whatever, and then he would finish them off and make them all smooth. And so, but it's 12 separate drawings, so it's like a combination,
Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to say, particularly with Matt, it seems to be a role that if it's done right, people don't notice it because it draws you into the game and it's done right. But when it's not weighted properly and when things aren't moving, it takes someone out of the game, and you really notice it's not done right. So I really feel this really is, the crux of the game, making sure that everything sucks the player right into it and just really envelops them into the world.
It's kind of interesting to see, like, working on it and doing it is one thing. Like, okay, I think that works as a character, and then sending it to Ash, having it put in the game, and then finally playing a demo of it. I'm like, wow, this like actually functions and it actually feels like you're playing characters, fighting against characters, and everyone just starts to feel different. Like, oh, that enemy doesn't feel like the character I'm playing, and Diana doesn't feel like the Phantom. So it's cool. It is interesting to see how big a role it plays.
I feel like we struck a really good balance between as far as the movements go, between like a realistic, like brutal feeling fight for the Phantom, and then like having it be fun for a video game also. Like someone, like there's a kick that he does, like just like a full like kick from the side, and it's looks pretty awesome. It's like a real brutal kick. But some of the villains, like they're fun, they're animated in a fun way also. So it's like I think it really kind of hits the best of both worlds in terms of being like faithful to what it could be like and also be a cool game,
You don't want to get mired down in too much of the 1930s reality. You do want a little bit of the fantasy component into it, but
Yeah.
that's a line you constantly walk in these types of games.
Matt, do you have like a favorite part of the game or anything like that you've created?
That's a good question. There's always like a period when I would finish an enemy or a boss or something. I'd be like, wow, this one's probably my favorite. It was so fun to work on, or the animation and the movements flow really cool on this guy. So it's kind of hard to pick one because I thought that of a lot of things. Um, there's one enemy that had like he has like a whip chain, and he'll always stay in my head because he took forever to animate that chain because just each frame having to make sure the links line up so it doesn't look too jittery as it goes. But he actually had a lot of fun moves to do. So it was like you want to make it look good, but you also don't want to cheap out because you want it to like look awesome and epic. So he's definitely one that stuck out. But there's a lot of bosses that I think will be fun to see in motion when the game's like out and finished.
Anthony, what was your reaction when Ash reached out to you with this crazy idea about a video game?
I was skeptical for like 1 second, but he had a legitimate company going, so I was like, all right, this sounds believable, and he's Australian, and so I was like automatically, oh, this guy's a Phantom fan, definitely. And so we just talked about it and we hit it off, and I was pretty excited to do it. I think, I thought it was a pretty good fit from pretty much from the jump. We kind of like dove right into it. As time has gone on, I did more, and as things developed, we got more responsibility and things like that.
When you bring in new people into a team, it's always good to lull them into a false sense of security that the job's going to be easy and fun all the time. And that's certainly what I did with Anthony. I said, hey, let's just do some concept illustrations. Then I slowly lured him into the deep depths of game design, which is ridiculous hours and lots of frustration for a greater good. But I think my first call with Anthony was from the garage of my mother-in-law's house in California, because I had flown back from New York with the contract.
Yeah, you were here. You were in the States, yeah.
Yeah. I'd flown back from New York with the contract in my hands, like I was carrying the codes to the nuclear weapons or something. And I was just so excited that I reached out to him, and I think Anthony sort of copped the first wave of my sheer enthusiasm.
I was just saying, you haven't looked back since, Anthony?
No, exactly right. I haven't. Ash also had the like an initial pitch for the game that he showed me, and it looks pretty cool. It's not the same as what we're doing now, but in terms of what it was, I liked it. I was like, oh, this is pretty neat, So I was pretty impressed by that.
And Anthony, had you done any video game work before? Because you started in comic books, as far as fandom fans are concerned. What's been the difference for you from working in comic books through to game animation?
There's different things to take into account. There's like a lot of scaling. There's how easy it is to animate, which I know I make it hard for these guys sometimes with some of the things I design. But at the end, hopefully you get a better product. So there's a lot of similarities because a lot of what I did, especially when I was art director for Zenoscope, was design a lot of characters. And for these games, I'm designing a lot of characters. And for the Phantom game, I did design a lot of the backgrounds too. There's a lot of similarities in terms of that and in terms of crazy hours and stuff. Yeah, the differences basically have to do with how it can be implemented from the drawing into being part of a game and to be actually used, where players would have to use. So yeah, the animation, simplicity, like the scaling, stuff like that, and the line quality and different things like that for them to reproduce it on the screen. You can't make it too fine, or you don't want to you want to make sure it's not too hard edged with a lot of jagged edges and stuff like that. You want it to be smooth looking. So there's definitely line quality considerations.
Yeah, right.
When I brought Anthony on board, another thing with comic book illustrators and certainly colorists is there is a tendency to think inside the page, inside the boundaries of a page, and a video game doesn't really exist in that function. You've got to think, it's a cliche, but you're thinking outside the square because you've got items in the background parallaxing, you've got layers and layers, and you've got things that move, and you've got a camera system. One of the most simple things, and this is not specifically with Anthony, but when we're dealing with other comic book creators, is when you draw something, you draw the object behind it as well. If there's something standing in front of something else, that object that it's standing in front of has to exist as well, right? Because we may pull that character out and move it around, and you want to have access to whatever's behind it as well.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So yeah, you got to think about you're building a layered scene in a video game versus a still image that doesn't have to have things behind other things shown. So that was a big thing for us. And Anthony suggested the line weight, which is also an issue because when you're drawing something by hand, you're not necessarily thinking about how it's going to relate to another character down the line. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, that sort of stuff all builds up.
Yeah, there's not a whole ton of hand-drawn game stuff going on like the way we're doing it, I don't think. So there's been experimenting along the way. There's nobody there to tell us necessarily what to do.
Yeah.
So we've kind of learned a little bit. And, the people we bring on along the way, we try to, pass on the lessons that we've learned to them quickly.
Yeah.
So
trailblazers. I was just thinking, I would call it the first layer, but and you touched on it just a second ago, Anthony, the backgrounds. When we reading a comic, the background is either a square or it might be a full page splash. But with the video game, it goes from the left and the character's walking all the way to the right. What type of distance we're talking about here? Do you just read?
I've told Ash what it was. I think the equivalent to like 7 covers next to each other, I think is what we came up with. It's all one very long image. Like to really see it on like my computer screen or whatever, you have to zoom in and look at it in parts. Like it goes all the way across, but it's just like a line across the center of the screen. So it's pretty long. And it takes a long time to do, when you're including background elements and different things like that. But you do it in sections with these games, like, because since you're walking through the level, each section, like the beginning would be like one building and then a different building later on. So you can break it up into like 3 or 4 almost complete drawings, you know what I'm saying?
So it's not like you're just cycling through the background, like, oh, there's that tree. Oh, there's that tree again. Oh, there's...
That stuff exists, but we did for this game. We've done full backgrounds. All like the whole thing is an original drawing. Like there are times to use those kinds of machinations to reuse things and stuff like that. But pretty well fully hand drawn from jump levels. Original. So
yeah.
Have you had much feedback in terms of that point of difference, or is it that you're saying that this is the hand-drawn game versus what a lot of other people are doing? Have you already had feedback as to what that point of difference is like, or is this more something that's you'll hear about once the game's actually released and reviewers have had a chance to play it and that sort of stuff?
I don't really know. I mean, it's subjective in the sense that some people are going to gauge it one way and some people are going to gauge it another. I know there are people out there who just don't care. They're interested in the gameplay only. There's going to be some people out there who sort of yearn for the sort of more traditional style artwork in games. It's a unique point for us because not necessarily the artwork style in of itself, but how it relates to the original source material. I think that's kind of how we're angling our promotion of this game. It's not so much that it is hand-drawn, but it's more that it's reflective of the comic series and it's taking a comic book approach to making a video game about comic books, So it's not the way to make video games full stop. It's certainly not, we wouldn't want to make every single game the way we've made the Phantom. We want to announce that we care about the visual style of games and how that relates to the original source material. Like if we were to do an 80s TV show game, it would be still 2D hand-drawn, but we'd make it look like cell animation. The default by studios is to basically build the game they want to and then wrap it in a way that sort of reflects the original style of whatever brand that they're working with. And we kind of just want to point out that we've gone that extra mile. And it's, it's part, this sort of inbuilt appreciation for the comic aesthetic in general, which I have. And it's partly that it's just fun to do. And I'm not necessarily big on 3D to begin with anyway, so it wasn't much of an arm stretch for me to convince myself and anyone else around me that this was the way it was going to be done.
Anthony, when you were talking about you were doing work on the computer as well, what's drawn with a pencil versus what's drawn on a computer? And then is there stuff that you don't do that is done by Matthew with the animation, or like where do the lines go?
I believe Matthew does. You do all your work on a computer, right?
Yeah, every animation.
But and all the playable stuff I do digitally. I mean, I still use the same. I was drawing it the same as I would on paper, but Ash was talking about the layers and different things. All the backgrounds and all the characters I do completely digitally. I have like Cintiq tablet where I draw right on the screen, stuff like that. And then the cut scenes and like the box art and stuff like that, I do on paper. But there's digital changes, edits, and different little things that we've done to it. Like I'll chop it up and make it into layers. If I don't like a face, I'll go in, I'll change the face. There's all kinds of different little things. So it's kind of just a hybrid of whatever works best to get the final result that we want. And
also things like the in-game panels where the characters are talking is all did paper.
So how much paper are we talking about? I've seen a photo of it and it looks like
you saw that
bit.
photo. That's most of the stuff from the game, however many sheets that is. I didn't count them up actually by hand. Actually, I did once. I think we're at like 30-something pages.
15 cutscenes, so that's 15 sheets plus the smaller panels that are in the cutscenes as well. So that's
I think it's like
probably
30.
about, let's just say about 40 to 50 pieces.
Yeah, wow. Now, I'll have to ask the obvious question. What is going to happen with all those original drawings? I'm a collector, and I know there's going to be other collectors that are going to be asking this question. When they listen to this, they're going to be pressing pause and then messaging Anthony and stuff like that. So what's the plan for those?
I will have them all in the studio here. There are some pieces I will never sell. Particularly the throne room scene and the piece we've used for the box art and stuff like that. But I think we will get to a point middle of next year, which we will have a limited gallery auction of the cutscenes and other bits and pieces from the game that we will basically start to sell off, I think. I think at this stage, that's probably what the most likely outcome will be. Pieces that we like, and then basically we'll have a gallery for the rest of...
When you say gallery, do you mean a physical gallery or just something online?
Well, if I did physical, it'd be limited to people who could come to Melbourne and look around. Yeah. Online, I think, is the fairer way to do it. I would love to have, at some stage, a small launch party for the game. It doesn't need to be like on the actual launch, but at some stage next year, I'll probably have a small function here in Melbourne for those who can make it.
Glasses of milk all around.
Yeah. There's just so much stuff. I really kind of want to make sure we go through it and pick and choose the things that we'd like to keep and frame here at the studio, and then offer some other pieces out there. I mean, there's some really cool pieces just in the cutscenes alone. There's some awesome stuff. Definitely, we'll put something up on social media at the start of next year once we figured it all out.
I'm sure you've got a lot of original art collectors very licking their lips and rubbing their hands gleefully together.
Yeah, and they can not bother Anthony, and they can bother Ash instead.
We also want to create a few pieces too, based on the work that we've done. Because, like Anthony said, he would do like the first keyframe of an animation, and then Matthew would go in and flesh it out. What we'd love to do is some black and white pieces of all of those keyframes together in like a poster size, because there's roughly 200-ish frames that make up the Phantom's basic, core frame set. It sort of becomes sort of like a magic eye, where you can just seeing like a wall of different Phantom frames. They're only ever so slightly different from each other, but lots of cool things. So we'd like to create some art pieces to sell as well, basically from the game. And of course, we have the digital art book, which is coming out, the pre-sale stuff, which we can talk about later. And then when we do the collector's edition with limited run, there'll be a physical soft copy book as well.
Oh, wow.
Ash, I don't know where the NFT market is these days. Is that something that you're looking to tap into as well?
No, not at this stage. I don't think there's enough interest within the core fan base of the Phantom for the NFT stuff.
They're all too old.
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
Yeah, I've just never necessarily been a fan of the whole crypto scene. So I mean, I would have to like skill up on it to figure out exactly how we could integrate the brand. But yeah, and that'd all have to go through licensing approval, and that's a meeting I don't necessarily want to have.
Fair enough.
And will you ever go back to comics, or are you going to stay in the video game? Obviously, you've got the Lady Death game after this as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely primarily focused on video games right now. I'm sure at some point, I do still do covers and things like that. I don't see myself doing a lot of interiors anytime soon, but I will still always be involved in comics in some way or another, I still do. I haven't done many lately, but I still do an occasional cover and stuff like that. So I'm I'm sure you'll see some stuff from me again in comics down the line.
That's good. One more question. One thing we've noticed, and we've discussed this on the podcast as well, especially because Frew has released a couple of your earlier stories from Team Fantomen recently. One of the things that we noticed was, and we've kind of had this discussion with Matthew as well, is that it feels like your video game Phantom is more live or athletic or smaller than your comic. I was just wondering if you can talk a bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Ash and I went through a whole bunch of different preliminary designs for the Phantom and settled on this one. We had like bulkier Phantoms, we had thinner, faster Phantoms, we had like real animated, like Bruce Timmey looking Phantoms. Yeah, like I brought my style to the game to a pretty large extent, but I also tailored it to what we wanted to do for the game, and I really didn't take, I got to match up to my Anthony Spay comic style. That really wasn't what I was trying to do at all, So I just wanted to do the best thing for the game. So yeah, we settled on this Phantom, and it's a pretty good mix of strength and athleticism, I thought. So
and by getting the Phantom right, I'm assuming they'll then affect every other character in their design, their size, because the game's built around the Phantom, and then everything else in the world is in relation to the Phantom. So if you make the Phantom bigger or smaller would affect the size of Diana or the size of the bad guy.
Yeah, in some of the comics that I've worked on, the Phantom's kind of the tough guy, and the villains are kind of like not clowns necessarily, but like they're sometimes they're fodder for the Phantom, and then there's like one major real villain. But then for the game, like if you make the Phantom too jacked up and huge, then like if you want to make the villains intimidating, then you gotta make them even bigger, So we have like big intimidating guys in the game, and then we have smaller, quicker villains also in the game. So you want to have a character that can believably interact with all of me. You don't want to paint yourself into a corner by by overpowering the main character of the game so that everybody else looks like a chump, So
Yeah, and also there's the two-player component to this as well, because if we jack up the Phantom, then Diana just seems woefully underpowered compared to him.
that's true.
We had a big discussion. In fact, Diana was a bit of a sticking point for months on end on how we bring Diana up to speed with the Phantom, right? Because you want to play as Diana. We wanted players to actively consider playing as Diana instead of the Phantom through the story. How would we achieve that if the Phantom was too overpowered? And so we brought the Phantom down a little bit. And also, I just really love the aesthetic of the NECA action figure. And I was seeing a lot of positive reviews from people who weren't fans of the Phantom, saying it just looks really cool, So we took some of that inspiration and positivity into our designs as well.
Yeah.
But going back to Diana, we sped Diana up so she's faster, she can get around the screen quicker. Her combinations are more fluid, but she has to put a lot more effort into them. So, we kind of try to balance up those two characters. Yeah, but if we had gone with more of a Punisher style Phantom where he's just like ridiculously roided up, it would have been more of a farcical experience.
Matt, can you speak to what that means for you in terms of making Diana faster around the screen? And does that mean she gets more steps in her walk cycle or whatever? Or how do you make that differentiation between the two?
Well, like Ash said, we had a long conversations about it. It's not necessarily more. I mean, some of her frame sets actually did have a lot of frames, but it's more about adjusting how the poses look, I guess, in each frame set. So if Phantom's running and he's like kind of more strong or heavy set, he's got to puff up his chest, get his stature more centered and stable. And she just kind of has more of an angular look, like she's got to go this way because she's darting faster. It's all about the look of the frame sets. A lot of like Ash said, her combos kind of flow more, so it's kind of tricky to explain because I can just draw it so easily, but it's just every frame counts. So if you have one that's going into another one, you have to make sure it's not going to hiccup and like, oh, she's doing this attack, which can do its own thing, but it actually snaps into this next part of the.
Yeah, and she's landing one or two hits more than the Phantom in the same amount of time because she's not as strong, but she's more agile and can have more direct hits. The Phantom has more power, so he doesn't have to apply as many direct hits to an enemy to knock them down. And also simple things we did, like we didn't think Diana could actively throw most of the enemies because they're like 3 times her size. So we actually had her do a jump up onto their shoulders. So she's like sitting on their shoulders, then flip them based on like the power of
Hurricane Runner.
Yeah. So she has more far more agility. She's faster on the screen. She lands more blows to knock them down, but because she's putting more effort.
Using her weight.
Yeah, she's using her weight a lot more. She just has a different style for her idol and her general demeanor. Like the Phantom basically has his fists up and he's ready, but the way she walks and everything, she's constantly getting ready for battle. Whereas when the Phantom walks, his arms go down by his side. He's a little bit more comfortable with his power and he shows it. Whereas Diana is more reserved and she's always, cautious for battle. And these things are so subtle, we're only showing these things across a total of like 20 or 30 frames. But it makes a difference. It makes them feel like, because back in the 80s, they would just take a sprite and they would just put a wig on it and essentially call it a female character. We've gone to the drawing board. We've taken her back to square one and rebuilt her. So she doesn't even share the majority of the Phantom's traits in terms of her attacks or anything. She's a completely original character. All this adds to time and budget and all that sort of stuff. But we felt like, again, we're depicting a semi-realistic type battling experience here where, we want some things to make sense. We're building a world where things make sense, essentially.
As you're describing Diana fighting, it sort of reminds me of the Marvel movies, or say like Black Widow fighting or something like
Definitely.
that. Did you have like an action movie or something like that to kind of guide the way that you did Diana? Or
I think it was about 100 sources that we used. There's a great YouTube channel that just has walk cycles and just has idle cycles. And so we would scour through those. There's probably about 15 or 20 videos. So we would look at fighting game references, Chun-Li, all those characters, and try and build something around that. But also how she's portrayed in the movie helped a little bit too. Heaps and heaps and heaps of different references. There wasn't necessarily one superhero character that we focused on. Definitely a lot seeps into your head that you are unaware of when you come to develop a character. So like you said, that Black Widow sort of movement with her throwing and all that sort of stuff. Until you said that, I didn't think of Black Widow, but now it totally makes sense. Yeah, I think we've just naturally absorbed a lot and fed it into what we're doing. But then, reference-wise, we've mainly focused on video game characters rather than movie characters. Does that make sense?
Just waiting for Diana to pull out the spinning bird kick now.
Yeah, like there is I think you would have seen it in the second trailer. There is a move where the Phantom Diana actually you can couple up and do a power move together. That's probably about as most comical as it gets. Everything's pretty like down to
Dumb.
You could see a female character of her build fighting in the way that she fights.
Steven mentioned the Hurricane Rana. I've definitely sent these guys a couple wrestling clips over the course of the game.
Yes. Yes. I would love to see the Phantom pile driving, but I just didn't feel right.
Awesome. So, Ash, first of all, thank you for your work and your passion that you've done in creating this game. We, on a personal level at Chronicle Chamber, have enjoyed the insights and the looks behind the scenes as the project has progressed. First question: would you do it again?
Yeah, we kind of are with Lady Death, but I think Lady Death will be the end of our comic book game adaptation system that we've got at the moment, focusing on some other retro sort of designs and things like that. I think we just need a break from that exact style. There are a million things I would do differently, going right back to the negotiation of the contract. We all learned, and building a pipeline to make a game like this is something that is very difficult. And I'm glad we've got the team that we've got now, because if we wanted to make a comic book game exactly the way that we did the Phantom, we would be able to do it probably about 30% better and quicker than we did with the Phantom. Lots of learning experiences, but I would definitely do it again, as long as someone else paid me.
That is fair enough. I guess the next question, which I was going to ask, is not null and void, and that is, we're not going to see a Defenders of the Earth game coming out anytime soon.
We'd like to. I think that would be the one project that would draw me back into doing another comic book style game. I don't know how likely it is given the digital rights globally and how that would work. I think that's a sticking point.
It seems like there's a real push by KFS with the Defenders of the Earth license. Like, they've got their own standalone Defenders of the Earth license that you can purchase, as well as, Flash, Mandrake, and obviously the Phantom. So there seems to be a real push, but
I don't know how far that extends into the digital realm, and that's a conversation I would definitely have with them down the line. At this stage, our focus is to get the Phantom as good as it can possibly be, get it out the door, get people playing it, and sort of gauge the reaction. And obviously, we'd like to sell as many possible copies as we can and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, for us as a studio, the Phantom was never about making enough money to buy everyone a gold-plated Ferrari. It was a project of passion, but also a project of curiosity. Can we make a game like this, and can we make it work? We've seen many studios doing digital versions of what we've done, all digital. Could it work with hand-drawn, the hand-drawn aesthetic and hand-colored and all that sort of stuff? Could we get something out the door within the time frame? And, we've been able to get it ready, but will people appreciate it and all that sort of stuff is yet to be seen. I think definitely the feedback we've been getting from the fans has been like almost entirely positive, and that's great. Greater gaming community, you've got people who want to see certain things certain ways, and we could never appeal to every single fan base that likes, some people just don't play 2D games, they only like 3D experiences. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes. I would definitely love to tackle Defenders of the Earth. I think the brand is awesome, and it has a very similar kind of childhood nostalgia with me. I think we could do some real cool stuff with it. Would allow us to do more of a fantasy-based game and not have to drown it in so much reality. You know, Mandrake especially would be able to do some pretty cool stuff.
Is there stuff that you could take, like the Phantom and all of the Phantom's animations? Would you just lift that and put it straight into Defenders of the Earth? So you've got the character operating.
Yes and no. Yeah, I think we would. We'd obviously change his color palette, but there's things like it would be. We have his. Would we have him using his guns, or would we have him using what he does in the show, which is basically just his straight agility and physical fighting abilities.
But you've obviously got a massive head start if you were to go that way.
Yeah. We would probably recolor him and take off his gun belt and do some things like that. I mean, none of that is specifically really easy, but it's certainly, we'd have the foundation for the Phantom there for sure. And that would make things a lot easier. You would definitely go more arcadey and more lighthearted with Defenders of the Earth, because that's kind of how the show was. There would be, and obviously the engine itself, like we're using a 3D cell engine basically with 2D assets in it. So that allows the characters to move up and down and live within a 3D space, but it's all presented as a 2D game. So we would be able to use that engine again for Defenders and just keep upgrading it. Obviously go from 2 players to 4 players and have online multiplayer and like build it all up. But to do all of that, budgets start exceeding $1 million. And we would need to know that there would be a fan base that would be able to, so we could recoup that budget.
Yeah, wow.
And often in the current landscape of gaming, publishers are wanting to see sort of 3 to 5 times their investment. So if we went to a publisher or an investor and said, hey, can you invest in this? And they gave us $1 million, they would be expecting $3 million in sales. So then it becomes a game of, well, can we sell 100,000 units of this worldwide to get that kind of money? Yeah, it's real tricky. If all those things can align in some sort of perfect sort of eclipse, some sort of solar planetary alignment, I would definitely be 100% in.
Good answer. I was just wondering if we can go over some of the key dates going forward. Obviously, we've got the pre-orders for the digital copy on November 25th, 2024. Then we have the launch of the digital game, which is February 25, 2025. And that's also the pre-order of the physical game. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way limited run work is when we launch the digital version of the game, they launch their pre-orders for the physical. It won't necessarily be that exact day, but it will be around that time.
So end of February.
Then they will basically figure out how many copies they need to produce a number of extra for whatever we've requested. And then it will go into physical production. Now, that will be what it is. Usually 3 months you're looking at between when pre-orders finish and when the game sort of hits shelves. We'll be keeping the fans updated on the physical side of things as it happens. There are fewer and fewer physical publishers that are launching games of our size now. So we're kind of at the mercy of the production line and some of the bigger games going out first and all that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit frustrating, but we'll keep the fans updated as to the physical copy. I mean, we're dying for the physical copy here in-house.
And I know a lot of fans are as well. And I do like how with the mega fan packs, you are looking after the fans so they can have their physical copy so they can put it in their display cabinet or put it on their shelf like what you've got behind you as well. So I do think that's good from a fan's point of view.
Well, we have to do both at the end of the day. I mean, the split usually between digital and physical is about 70-30. So we expect to make 70% of our money back on digital and then about 30% on print. It's also helpful to know to the fans that, from the physical side of things, we work with limited run. Limited run cover the cost of that production physical, but we don't really see the sales for that physical for up to 90 days from when they collect the money. So for us to keep the business thriving, it really is to focus on digital sales. So that's why we have reached out to all the artists and got them involved, because you're right, people do like the physical, but there's a whole bunch of people out there who just want to play the game and then have also something on the shelf. So I think we've kind of covered all bases. Some people want to grab the digital copy and then grab the physical one later next year when it comes out. I've bought multiple games in different formats and stuff like that, but we're hoping the digital side of things does really well, so we can kind of use that money to work on the next project and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Of course, everything's pending approval, but there's looking like there's going to be some clothes and a statue as well that you will release through the website.
The merch contract has been signed with King Features, so we're at the stage now of producing some t-shirts and also some. We will have some of those up on the pre-order site on the 25th as coming soon items, so you can kind of salivate over those. We definitely got a resin statue of the Phantom riding a motorcycle, because that's what he does in the game. So that's in production as well. So yeah, there's a few bits and pieces coming out that we'll be releasing next year, in conjunction with everything else that's happening. We want the Phantom site to be living for at least 12 months, 18 months after the release of the game.
Will those things only be available through the website, or could you be able to get them through like EB Games?
Only the website. The physical copies of the game through EB are being sorted. It will depend on pre-order numbers, basically. I have spoken to the suppliers for EB, and they're interested in the game. So Australia-wise, you'll probably be able to walk into an EB Games middle of next year and grab a copy if you needed to. But like I said, it's the physical side of gaming is just so in flux at the moment that we just want to make sure that everyone who pre-orders the physical copy will get it. Then we'll worry about store distribution after that. We'd love to get it into all JBs and all EBs and all the Bs throughout Australia.
That'd be good. The mega fan pack.
And so will that be available? That's going to be available from the November 25th as well, correct?
Yeah. So you can choose one version of the game digitally on your preferred platform. And for that mega pack, you'll get the 7 art prints and the 7 boxes, either PlayStation 5 or Switch, your choice. I was thinking of just offering the game slips, then you can just get your own cases, but I thought that's a little bit sort of weird. So, you will get 7 cases. You can just have them on display if you like. Put one in each room. I'm not quite sure what you'd want to do, but that'll be on there.
And I'm right here, Ash, that the slip that's in the case, obviously, but there's also a print. What size of the print are you doing as well?
100 by 160, so it will fit basically. If someone orders just the Switch copy of the game, it'll fit inside or on top of the Switch box, and that'll just make postage a lot easier. So it's like a taller, narrower print. So basically the package will come with the print. The print will be obviously in a plastic wrap, and then we'll have cardboard both sides, then the game cover as well for extra stability. The store's looking great. It's going to be up and running on Monday. It's already all been approved. So yeah, we're super pumped about it, because it's going to be our Art of Play store that will have not only the Phantom, but Lady Death next year, and then any other merch that we want to make from any of our other games. Or any merch you want to make for just in general is going to be up there too. So it's going to be like a nice little cool hub of cool stuff that we want to make throughout the next few years.
The motorcycle statue, is that going to be one of the first statues or figures that you've had created off your designs, or have you had those before?
That'll be the first Phantom for sure. I've had a couple of 6-scale figures, a couple of little action figure things done off my designs before. Because I'm definitely very excited for it to have a statue of it, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, I love the figurine. I'll definitely get one at my shelf. I imagine they'll be going into your display cases at the back there.
Oh yeah, I got my Phantom cases out in the other room. I have like a thing with a bunch of different little cubes. My wife and I have different cubes of our stuff in there, and I have two Phantom ones. So that'll be going in a prime spot in there. I have a combo of like books that I've done, and the our sample box for the game, and then like other Phantom materials and stuff like that. I got the NECA figure in there. I got the Bowen Designs Phantom little bust guy and stuff. So I am a real fan. I also collect Phantom long before I ever started drawing them.
Good to hear.
You said that you've come in late to the Phantom. You're obviously not a collector necessarily. Do you collect other stuff?
Yeah, I'm not a huge. I mean, there's some things I like to collect. I'm very minimalist with my decor. I don't have many wall paintings or anything, but starting this game, I actually got a few things like King Features gave us like a little gift bag, and then prepping for getting physical copies. Like, maybe I'll make a little shrine sooner or later with all these cool things that I got from the game. It'll be like my first console game that I've gotten released, so it'll be cool to kind of commemorate it. And like I said, he's a really cool character, and Anthony's done some really cool art for the game. So it'd just be nice to have it, displayed somewhere and kind of show off, like, hey, that's like my friend worked on that.
There's a lot of neat stuff for in the actual game. If you blew it up to like an art print size, it would be pretty cool to have a print of, and like some
jungle
of the
background
characters.
is gorgeous.
Which one?
The jungle background.
Oh yeah, jungle's cool. Jungle's
yeah,
a lot of fun.
I was going to ask,
backgrounds I like.
when you create a background like that, and you're talking about the big long strip and 7 covers and that sort of thing, do you put little things in a building, someone in a window, I don't know, just to entertain yourself as you go, just to go, oh
yeah,
that's really cool, and
there's definitely stuff like that. I'd probably do more of that in the comic than the game, because the game you're going to be playing it over and over again. You don't want to put anything in there that's going to distract anyone. But like we put in little background animals and stuff. I don't want to give away Easter eggs or anything, but like there are elements in the background that are from the world of the Phantom or real landmarks from different parts of the world and things like that. And so there are definitely considerations for little extras to put in. Like I've definitely put in our names here and there into different, there's all kinds of little different stuff like that. So it's pretty fun, but you don't want to do too much to where it takes away from anything,
Yeah, but it is still part of keeping yourself entertained and interested as you work.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
We are running a NECA competition we've got a Phantom figure, a NECA signed by Billy Zane, and we're going to be running a competition. We're supposed to start it this month, but we've been so flat out. We're going to be launching it probably in December before Christmas. Yeah, we'll get you guys to some information on that when it comes out. But yeah, that's another thing to look out for.
He's obviously aware of the game then, because
I got someone else to sign it on my behalf because it was done in the US when he was doing a circuit last year. It might have even been 2022. No, I think it was 23. Is he aware of the game to the extent that he should be? No. Is he aware that it exists? Yes, as far as I can tell. We would have loved to have got him in. I don't know, maybe we could just do a play session with him. Maybe we could do like a Twitch stream with Billy Zane,
That would be cool. If we could get if Billy Zane was to post on his Instagram a little video of him playing the game, I think that'd be sensational.
That's all I'd need. I'd retire right there.
You're not mentioning Xbox there, but you said that they were on board a little while ago. Are they still on
Xbox
board?
approved the game. Yeah, we're still having some problems with their overall system. It's really not geared up that well for independents such as ourselves, but we're getting there. It's a slow grind. They have approved the game, so that's a good thing. Because with Nintendo and Sony, you don't have to send them the game. You just send them a spec sheet, some screenshots, and a couple of videos, and they go yay or nay. With Xbox, you have to send them a full working copy of the game for them to play. So you can't even submit the game to them until it's almost finished. So that's why it was a bit of a delay on our end. But yeah, they've approved it. So it's just a bunch of red tape we're dealing with at the moment in terms of setting up the appropriate back-end features for us to actually publish in December. There is a slight delay with Xbox. We will let everyone know, but at this stage, it's looking good.
Cool. Thank you, Ash, Anthony, and Matt, for joining us in this podcast. We thank you for your hard work, and we look forward to kicking our kids, and for some of us, our grandkids, off their devices and playing this game. We look forward to the new generation of fans who will pick up the game and then pick up a comic. So Ash, Matt, and Anthony, thank you.
Thanks, Jermaine. Appreciate it, mate. Thanks, Dan.
It's been awesome.
David.
Thank you.
Yes.
Listeners, thank you for listening or watching this podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com and email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and opinions on our social media platforms or over at the YouTube channel. If you do want to do some video games and plays of it and all that as well, when this does come out, let us know, because we would love to be able to feature that as well. You can subscribe to us via YouTube or through your favorite podcast apps, including iTunes or Spotify. Thank you. Please get in contact with us. And as always, happy Phantoming.
Happy Fantoming, everyone.
years ago,
Fantoming.
he washed ashore the
Happy
sole
Fantoming.
survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die. The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds